Back to Hearthstone Champions League. My name is Marcin Nimsh Filipovic and I'm here with Alexander Raven Baguli. And we're watching elimination match Ostkaka versus Hannibal. Oh, it's
This is
tied.
Tides of
It's
Time.
actually tied of time! Surprise!
Yeah, we tried to trick everyone then. But yeah, it is Ostkaka versus Tides of Time. Ostkaka's starting with his Rogue versus Tide his Patron Warrior. So going to be an interesting matchup. I imagine Ostkaka is definitely going to want to, prep for a potential board clear because even though you're afraid as patron for the big blade throw to clear the patrons off, it doesn't stop you actually going for the patrons, right?
Did this matchup improve after Warzone Commander nerf for the Rogue, or did it get worse? Because if I'm thinking about it, this matchup is a tempo matchup, where a warrior wants to... Well, he has the patrons, obviously, but then patrons get countered by a deadly poison or oil with the flurry. But then without patrons, you cannot charge, so you cannot stack cards in hand. So what you have to do the tempo plays like Shredder into Belcher, and those can be countered by standard Rogue plays like Sap or Preparation Eviscerate with Azure Drake.
Yeah, I think it got better for the Rogue, just because the Rogue can actually, at least try and prepare for an AoE clear, whereas in, previous incarnations of Patron, the potential burst, even from the Frothing Berserkers, you just couldn't really deal with, and Rogue doesn't too commonly play a lot of taunts either, so it's kind of, hard to try and block those big charge plays, but that doesn't happen anymore. The only charge creature you're really afraid of is Grom, and the Rogue can definitely prep and try and deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even before we start discussing how this game will go, looking at the lineups of the players, they have one difference, where Tides of Time is playing Druid and Ostkaka is playing Warlock, which is Zoo. So based on the lineups, I'll have to say that Ostkaka has a slight advantage matchup-wise.
But it is Kodo Druid though, right? So you never know. There is MCT and Kodo in the deck, so that might be enough to just help the Druid out a little bit. But I would agree, Nimch. I think overall the lineup with the Zoo instead of the Druid is a little bit stronger because it does match up against the Druid, if that matchup actually happens.
I think we haven't seen all the cards yet, because we had to wait for Tides of Time to complete the Blackrock Mountain. This means that he was sniping or hunting for one specific card that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting if he's teched in anything else, but there is potential that he didn't have any of the set on his EU or anything like that, so maybe it was just to help with the patron, in terms of if you needed Grim patrons for a start. So
That's true. Alright, so Ostkaka, turn 4, he's facing a Shredder, he can go for his own Shredder. What else can he do? Is this the time to prep sprint? Do you need more cards, or are you happy with what you have at the moment?
I think Shredder's okay. You kind of just want to get something on the board, but having more cards is never really, a bad thing either. And I suppose the issue or the argument for not playing the Shredder is because your Shredder doesn't, Tides of Time Shredder gets to attack first, so it's a pretty interesting play, not using prep for the sprint and actually prepping out the sap to gain that tempo advantage with his own Shredder. So now he's in the position that Tides would have been in terms of getting the first attack off.
Yeah, that's true, but he is going for those tempo plays, right? So going for face and positioning himself where he has Lotha blocking the spells. Not that many spells being blocked, surprisingly, for that time.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one, isn't it? Normally you want to just lock out, the Inner Rages, Whirlwinds, Executes and things, and there is only an Execute that's being blocked out, so it's not too terrible, and we might actually see the Cruel Task goes down to clear up the 5-1, and actually getting a 3-2 taunt is pretty nice, and it does challenge the Shredder pretty heavily.
Yeah, and Ostkaka doesn't have anything yet to counter it unless he draws into something. He gets Deadly Poison, so that's something, but the problem is, if he applies Deadly Poison now, he'll not be able to play Azure Drake or go for the sprint. So he's going for the first sprint first. Let's see. He's drawing 4 cards, Raven, 4 cards!
And it is Belcher, an Oil, Fan of Knives, and another prep. So that second prep actually is pretty big. Means you can get squeezing a bit more into his following turns. He probably won't use it for prep sprint again. He might try and get something off of maybe prep Fan of Knives or get the Deadly Poison on board and maybe throw the Belcher down. But he might consider prep sprint to try and get a flurry at this point because the board is starting to build up.
Yeah, it starts looking really well for Tides of Time. Like, if the Ghoul is out, he's drawing a card, he's getting some armor, he still has some pressuring potential with 7 damage on board overall. So a tough decision now with a lot of cards. What can the World Champion do?
So a few of the options. I mean, he could play Belcher into Eviscerate the 1/4 just to remove the armor stack, because something that Rogue does struggle with sometimes is, although there's a lot of damage potential from minions against a deck like Patron Warrior with a lot of potential removal, you do only have a certain amount of damage with a big combo. So you might just want to reduce that armor smith, because with the Ghoul down, there's going to be so much card draw.
Yeah, that's true. That's why he's going for Acolyte of Pain. Like, he wants to deny the card for now, but there are cards like Battle Rage for Warrior, and Tides doesn't have Battle Rage now, but he has Battle Rage potential if he gets it at some point.
Yeah, this could be quite scary as well for Ostkaka. And there's another totem that we saw the other day make quite a large impact on the match. But this is definitely scary, because what Ostkaka sort of flagged is that he doesn't really have good AoE, because he just would have AoE'd that board down if he had it. If he had, like, the poison into a flurry. So, he does have it now, though. Oh, okay, this changed a few things.
Yeah, this changes a lot of things. So he will be able to flurry this board. Is there anything else, though? Fan of Knives not really. Like, he needs to get rid of this Frauding Berserker, that's for sure. And
yeah, I think he just Drake Deadly Poison Flurries here, right?
Does he have to even... Okay, I was like checking if he has to Deadly Poison. So if he plays Azure Drake,
he could prep Fan Flurry, I suppose.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So it will deal with the board easily. But then he will have no more AoEs, and can he not flurry? I guess not.
Yeah, I think he has to clear the board, because the Frothing Berserk is too scary. I guess we're going to see Prep Fan now. Oh no, the 1 damage. Oh, I was completely forgetting about the gold damage.
Yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah, just a blade. And he even draws a second blade for you from that Azure Drake, so that's actually really nice. So Tides of Time will probably have the mindset of, okay, there's the 1 flurry done. He probably doesn't have the second one quite yet. And, Ostkaka's already got it, and got an oil, and got prep, so he could do another big board clear in the near future as well, if Tides of Time builds up that patron board.
Lothar was an interesting pick for Tides of Time, because he almost completely locks the turn for Ostkaka, but he gets another Azure Drake, which is great for him. He needed to play something, like a body on board, and now he has it a second...
And now he has all of the spells he could ever want.
Good.
At least he locks in the weapon. He gets a fresh weapon up this turn, and there's not too much of a dilemma as to whether he uses his hero power or not.
And Tides gets the patron, so he might... well, actually, with 1 Whirlwind, it's probably not worth it. And the bucket remind, that the Rogue has so many cards that there will be access to cards you don't want to see, like Flurry, or even a simple Eviscerate to deal with the 3/2.
Yeah. Do you think, like, Sprint Van Cleef kill the 5/1 is worth it? It depends how scared you are of the Ghoul really stacking. The Berserker really stacking a lot of damage, but the Van Cleef would actually challenge the Berserker in terms of health, at least.
Well, you can challenge Berserker with oil, and that's a spell you can cast as well. So maybe Van Cleef still has an opening here. Fan of Knives and Van Cleef. Yeah, I absolutely like that. Clear the board, put a Van Cleef, which is reasonable on board.
Yeah, this is really nice. It puts quite a big threat, and he still has prep sprint next turn if he really needs to, and then reload on cards.
He might be thinking about preparation Fan of Knives to get the Van Cleef even bigger. So basically what is challenging Van Cleef is a activator and an execute. Like, normally Big Game Hunter is not being played. You can expect Big Game Hunter in some lists, but it's not that common. So preparation to Fan of Knives to get either bigger Van Cleef to finish the game faster is a pretty nice move.
Yeah, and the bonus of this as well, it's not like you're completely wasting the spell. The Fan of Knives doesn't often have too much use in this matchup because it's difficult to find anything on the patron board. But it also draws a card as well, so it does cycle. So really nice from Ostkaka there, making that a 10-10 and putting on I suppose it's the only way he can really win this match, because he's got a lot of armor to plow through first.
Well, even without the Van Cleef or having a Van Cleef at 6/6, he has a perfect answer to the patron board that Tides of Time is going to play next turn. So I feel like this game is going really fast. Tides playing, like Ostkaka doing a play right now, which doesn't even matter. Then Tides of Time playing Grim Patron, attacking with the weapon, doing the Whirlwinds, and then Flurry will make Tides concede.
Yeah, I think sprinting to SI7 agent's nice. You could have played Teacher to just get it down, but it does instantly die to their second charge Death Bite. So so this is nice, and just play the SI for a little bit more damage and another minion on the board.
A clutch card would be something like Grommash from Tides of Time, or getting possibly an Execute to get a bit more time. And
yeah, I think this slam is good because it means you can potentially just use an attack in and to face to further put him towards lethal range.
Yeah. So now he's going for those patrons, hoping there will be no Flurry, unless he thinks about keeping Whirlwind for Grommash, because he needs an activator. Like if he gets Grommash with Whirlwind, he will be able to win right there, and he still has a not yet, but he has a Fireworks and he's still at 29. Okay, he just concedes here.
Just
Tides of Time.
Definitely doesn't like to stick around in matches too long. So yeah, Tides of Time drops the first game, which is Ostkaka winning with his Rogue. So Ostkaka's doing pretty okay so far, and like we said, we think the matchups overall mean Ostkaka's lineup slightly favoured with the Zoolock instead of the Druid. So we'll see how that pans out for the next game.
Yeah, no, I don't blame the Tides of Time conceding. I kind of see that through, because you are thinking, okay, if I get Grommash next turn, like I will Grommash and Whirlwind, and Edwin attacks a couple of times before I do it. So he assumed there is a second Flurry, or at least a way to deal with the patrons, and then his chance of winning that game was really low.
Yep. But he's locking the patron in again, and he is lined up versus Zoo, so he's got I think he's got a pretty okay matchup. He is missing the Death Bite, but he's got a few turns to draw into that yet.
Yeah, and I think in this matchup, like overall, I agree with you. This is favored towards patrons. Like patron has a good matchup, but patron needs the weapons, and without weapons, it might be a bit tricky. It gives Ostkaka as a Zoo player a chance to do enough damage to finish the game with Doom Guards and a big board. But it was, I think, in the previous version, the Demon Zoo, when Demon Zoo was around, cards like Nerubian Egg, Void Caller were the most important cards in matchup. Now with the new Zoo, with Bran, with Gormok, it's a bit different, but I feel like Ostkaka might have a more burst than the previous versions.
Yeah, it's definitely scary because you can close games out even versus like Control Warrior with a lot of armor. You can provide so much like additional damage. You can really push these matchups that normally you struggle with a little bit in terms of so much health. And Ostkaka mustn't have had the best options in the world when he played his Peddler, because Dragon Egg, although it's okay, it's definitely not one of the top 1-drop picks.
Well, versus Ghoul, it's interesting, right? You can play it, you can get the 2-1 out of it. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Versus Patron, it actually might work.
Yeah, I think versus Patron, you still want stuff like Abusive and Power Overwhelming, but yeah, it's definitely not terrible in a matchup where you know you're going to get AoE'd for one, most importantly. So, it's definitely not too bad. It looks like it's kind of rough though. I think you can actually just clear the Ghoul and then play the Juggler and the Egg.
I would actually not hate getting a 2-1 out of the Egg. So basically, you play Egg and then attack the Ghoul with both minions. You get a 2-1. Egg is still alive, and then you play the Juggler. So basically, you have a 2-1, a Knife Juggler, and an Egg that potentially will spawn another 2-1.
Yeah, that's pretty okay actually. You guarantee more value out of the Egg, so that's not too bad either way. And it looks like that's the play Ostkaka's going to make.
Alright, so Juggler falling after, and there's going to be a whelp. What is the name of the small Dragonling? Is it a Dragonling?
I think it's a Dragonling, yeah. Yeah, we'll call it a Dragonling. We'll have to look that one up later. But Tides of Time's going to answer with a reasonable turn 3 in the terms of Pilot Shredder, and the fact they coined into it means he can just follow up with another Pilot Shredder on turn 4. So putting, really sticky minion on the board and maybe make it a little bit more difficult for Ostkaka to deal with, but Dark Iron Dwarf could make this pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it seems really good. Like, you can Dark Iron Dwarf the Egg and then hope that the knife actually hits, but Implosion is also a really good option.
Yeah, Implosion's just safe, right? I think that's the idea. Even if it hit for 2, which it did, like you can actually deal with it one way or another. Now the 2-1 actually just clears up the scientist pretty well, so yeah, good value from that egg as it's still there, so it is going to spawn almost certainly at least one more 2-1 throughout this game.
Yeah, and Dark Iron Dwarf, you know, maybe it wasn't the best play last turn, but now it's still really reasonable. Second Knife Juggler with Haunted Creeper, also a possible option, but I kind of like dealing with the 4-3 here with one of the minions.
Yeah, and this is the value of the deck, and like how good the deck can be. Like you suddenly your token that you got from an implosion now with the aid of a Dark Iron Dwarf just destroys the Shredder, and you can probably kill off the minion afterwards. And
oh man,
that is pretty interesting. Tides doesn't have a great way to kill it, but he did have a turn 5 Sludge Belcher anyway, so not too bad. And now the onus is on Ostkaka to wonder whether Cho affects his turn, but when he's got a turn full of minions, that answer is almost certainly a no.
Absolutely, and the Defender of Argus is so good. Like he can even go into Juggler, Defender of Argus. Like depends what he values more. Maybe Haunted Creeper to be able to use it next turn, and Defender of Argus on a 4/4 and a 1/1 imp makes it really easy to clear the Sludge Belcher and deal even more damage to face. And Lord Walker Cho being really good for Ostkaka at the moment. Like even though it can actually get a couple of knives and maybe soak some damage. Overall, Ostkaka with no spells in hand, he's super happy to see this Lord Walker Cho.
Yeah, and his students played the Argus onto the Juggler and the Egg, so that's pretty reasonable. He could have done it a few other ways, as I think the Juggle's whiffed a little bit there. He could have put it on the Dark Iron Dwarf and the 1/1 imp, and then just trade into Belcher like that. But he does want more value out of this egg, and you know, and as a knock-on effect, getting more value out of these Knife Jugglers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Alright, so not being able to go through with the dwarf, but getting some value from the egg. He hoped that the knife actually hits, but that was Lord Walker Cho bravely taking that damage on his face.
Yeah, and Ostkaka there again. It's something we saw, you know, like a few of the other players do, where you make the bigger plays that are slightly riskier, but if they like work, then it makes you so much further ahead that the game becomes even more secure. And Tides of Time having to just pass Ostkaka a slam, it's like, yeah, enjoy that one, and then putting the weapon into that egg. I mean, that egg has actually done a lot of work this game, so actually a really good pickup from Ostkaka. He made it work, so that was really nice. And Ostkaka takes the game as Tides lose, and loses again with his patron.
Oh man, and that was really tough because now Ostkaka's last deck is Patron. That's his main deck from the World Championships and from the European Championships. Like he was called the best, one of the best Patron players in the world, and now this is the last deck he has. And if he wins this, he will eliminate Tides of Time from the tournament.
Yeah, it's pretty good going so far for Ostkaka. He does just have his warrior left, and this is going to be the patron mirror. So it's kind of weird how this has moved on since the nerf to Warsong Commander, where normally the first person who plays the patrons gets so far ahead on the board that they just win. But there was an answer to that, whereas because the board was so big, you could actually pull off a massive double Frothing Berserker combo to kill them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't exist anymore. So it really is so heavily on like who gets the weapons and who can go into Grim Patron. And Ostkaka already having Despite, Grim Patron, and Inner Rage seems to be heavily favored at this point.
And Coin Whirlwind, so and some early game just in case, you know, just in case to not wait for the combo. So it seems incredibly in favor of Ostkaka, just looking at the hand. There is the Frothing Berserker for Tides of Time. So he has a follow-up with Pilot Shredder as well, but he doesn't have all those key combo cards that you want.
Yeah, he's got like it's like Tides of Time is playing has the early tempo, but Ostkaka just has this sort of blowout turn 5, and we might even see the coin into Deathspite here. I don't really see why not, just to get that Frothing Berserker off the board.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is there honestly a reason not to coin Deathspite? Like, do you really want to Deathspite next turn and have Grim Patron, Enrage, Whirlwind, Deathspite gun on 6 or on 5 actually? Possibly, but if you do that, how do you deal with this board? Like, you can actually kill the Frothing if you use Enrage, because you will have double Whirlwind effect. So maybe if you go for Taskmaster and then Taskmaster into your Armorsmith, attack for free into the Frothing Berserker, then Enrage Frothing Berserker, you will have a 2/2 on board, you will have a free 1 on board, which is not bad. And then you can play Death Spite next turn and still go for Death Spite effect Whirlwind on Patrons.
Yeah, that's definitely reasonable. The only worry is that you don't have the inner rage for the Death Spite, for the patron turn, sorry.
Yeah.
Because then you use it on the Frothing, and that's the difference between just creating the 2 patrons versus the 4 is huge. So I like this play from Ostkaka, just getting the Death Spite there, killing the Frothing Berserker, letting the Armor Smith sit there, just staring each other out. And then Tide of Time just slams the Shredder onto the board, as it's pretty given that that's his follow-up turn.
And now it gives... Oh, wow. Dread Corsair. This can be a really nice turn with killing the Shredder with Cruel Taskmaster into that Armor Smith and still slamming the Dread Corsair this turn as well. Even getting a Battle Rage. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, everything's going right. A second Dread Corsair.
Oh my god. I think Raven, this is going to be the shortest game ever.
Yeah, I honestly think I think Ostkaka only needs to play 1 Dread Corsair at this point. He probably doesn't need to commit to 2 because he can still play 1 next turn. But I think the second he drops the Dread Corsair and then the following turn is the patron turn. Judging from how Tides is played or at least acted in these few games, that he'll probably just concede, as there's really, with this board, no weapons from Tides. Grom, which is turns, may as well just be may as well be 1,000 mana at this point in terms of cost, because it's so far away to make an impact. Even the draw of Patron from Tides just doesn't change this matchup enough, unfortunately.
What do you think about attacking face and actually not playing Corsairs this turn? So by not playing Corsair, Ostkaka is making room for the patrons next turn, right? Like he will have Inner Rage, double Whirlwind effect to have a full board, and he's still threatening with what he has at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, he'll only have the single inner Whirlwind effect because he's on turn 5 next, right? So.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, he won't be able to play the second Whirlwind, but I think what he's doing is like, at this point, if Tides of Time runs his minions to trade into these minions, then that's still okay, right? Like, he doesn't need the armor, gained, and then next turn he can actually play 4 Grim Patrons and then guarded by 2 Dread Corsairs. So then, like, the odds on even like a weapon doing anything and killing off one of the patrons are so small because it means Tides needs like double execute slam weapon, which he just doesn't really have the mana for.
Well, there is one chance, I guess, which is Doomsayer. So like if Ostkaka goes for a really big turn and Tides gets a Doomsayer out of the Pilot Shredder, that just clears the board, and he plays whatever. Like even if he gets a Doomsayer, he doesn't have a great play. That's kind of sad, right?
Yeah, it's the follow up, and again, it's just to emphasize the lack of Yes, Ostkaka's had like a god draw this game, but just the impact of weapons, like Tides of Time sitting on 2 patrons, Grom, Cruel Task, really just does nothing regardless. And I'm pretty sure Tides might end this game soon. I wonder where Ostkaka's going to aim the attack. There's almost no reason to aim it at the Shredder.
Maybe he's not attacking this turn with the weapon.
You think? He's running the 2/1 in here because it means he enters the board so that the 2 more patrons can spawn, right? Oh no, he would have got 2 patrons anyway.
Okay, yeah. And not
just
killing
reducing
Shredder just to not. Actually, he's playing around Doomsayer. Because
yeah, that's true.
If you kill the Shredder and there will be a Doomsayer, he is in a tough spot, right? But now he ensures that even if there is a Doomsayer from Shredder, he can still easily kill it.
Yeah, and actually nice to see that Tides is actually continuing. I'm not even being like, making like a stupid joke or anything. Like, I'm just like, it's good that he's not just snap cancelled and quit the game. So this is nice. He did have a good play. He clears off one of the patrons, and now because he got Death Spite, suddenly his own patrons look a little bit better. But the only problem is, it feels like unless he draws like executes, he's always going to be behind in the patron count, especially because Ostkaka's sitting on double Whirlwind Battle Rage.
Can you please count to 3 after the Whirlwind Battle Rage? And
oh my god. He'll probably just he'll attack Whirlwind once, Battle Rage. This gives him the highest health patrons on the board, I believe.
Yeah, so Whirlwind Battle Rage, and we'll see if Tides continues. He still has his own patron, but Ostkaka now has a full hand, so looking overall at the game, it will be really tough for Tides of Time to come back. Like, even if he somehow clears his board. Unless he plays Brawl.
Yeah, that's and if anyone's gonna play Brawl,
That is Tides of Time.
it will be Tides. Yeah. There's no reason to play the Unstable Ghoul, as it only potentially makes your opponent, in the form of Tides, get more patrons, because the board is full, or relatively full, all but one minion. If Ghoul went down, then it just creates, you know, like even more patrons for Tides. So he does run the attack into the Frothing Berserker. He kills off one patron, but then summons, and may as well be a million more. And there's just not going to be a good comeback now for Tides, I don't think.
Yeah, it's really tough, and Tides concedes the game as we thought. Like, it was really tough from the beginning, even though it was a mirror match. Ostkaka just got a better hand, and this means Tides of Time is eliminated from the tournament, and we will never learn what was the card he was crafting from Blackrock Mountain. And Ostkaka is not out of the woods yet. He still has to face Hannibal Z in the lower bracket winners final.
Yeah, so he's got that matchup next. It's going to be a rough one, as you know, we've seen Hannibal Z with his hyper-aggressive lineup, and you know, sometimes a lineup like that is just too quick and can just steamroll games. So we'll see how that game goes next.
I'm quite sad, Raven. Like, we haven't had a Ties versus Tides of Time match, which is really good for the casters.
Yeah, I know. We don't have to try and navigate naming those two guys right one after the other for potentially an hour. So I'm a little bit glad of that, to be honest.
All right, guys. So we have one more match for you, which will be Ostkaka versus Hannibal Z. The winner will advance to the top 8 playoffs and will be the last member to join the rest of the guys. And by far, Raven, who is in the top 8? Can you list the players? Who are we going to see in the final day where they battle for the $10,000 prize pool?
Yeah, so far we have Stan Sivka, Sixo, Pavel, Ecop, Show, Orange, and now we have Tice, and then the winner of the next match. So I mean, it's not a surprise that the top 8 stacked, purely because every single group this week has been stacked pretty much. So really good top 8, and I'm looking forward to watching those.
Absolutely. And we don't have a date yet, guys, so if you want to know exactly when the last day is going to be held, follow me at NimshTV on Twitter, and follow Raven. What's your Twitter, Raven, again?
My Twitter is at Raven_HSUK.
You can also follow Hearthstone Champions League, and the official Twitter is at HSC League. So follow those Twitters to learn exactly when the last day will be held, because we don't have the date yet, but we will have it very soon. So far, the tournament's going great. Give us some time, guys, when we prepare the players for the last match, and we'll be back after a short break.